I'm the Executive Director of the BC Touring Council, and I would like to acknowledge that I am here today on the traditional territories of the Sinixt, Ktunaxa, and Syilx people, home to the Métis, and delighted to have you all. I am in Nelson, British Columbia. This is the second of a series of 4 workshops on social media. Inga Petrie did the session last week, and Brianna is here with us today to talk about content. There are 2 more Thursdays at 1 p.m. And I think that's all for now. Brianna, I'll hand it over to you and let us jump in.
All right, thank you so much, Joanna. I really appreciate that. I'm just going to start with my own land acknowledgement. I'm speaking to you today from Hudson, Quebec, which is the traditional and unceded territory of the Kanien'kehá:ka, or the Mohawk. And it's been a place that has long served as the meeting and mixing of many nations as well. So just a little bit about this workshop and what to expect, and my particular workshop style. I really like a conversational approach. I feel like your questions are the best guide to what to cover. I do have a slide presentation that I've put together, and you will receive that after the presentation. So if you see anything come up on screen, or if I mention any numbers, for example, that's all going to be in those notes that'll come later. This is one of several workshops, as Joanna mentioned, that are coming through the Digital Arts Nation website. And that is kind of a co-production with the Canada Council of the Arts, the Atlantic Presenters Association, and of course, the BC Touring Association. So what we're going to cover today is a little bit about what an effective social media presence looks like and sounds like. And much of that, of course, comes down to content. You know, social media is a constant churn, it's a constant conversation, and the platforms are always evolving. So we'll talk a little bit about, what good looks like, and how you know if you're doing well, and how to know what's right for you, because that might be quite different from what is right for another organization, even a very similar organization. We're also going to talk a little bit about the skills that you and your team need to be able to consistently create great content. And a little bit with some examples as well that are specific to, the different platforms. Specifically, we're going to be looking at Instagram, Facebook, a little bit on Twitter, and a little bit on TikTok as well. As I mentioned, there is room to ask questions, including things that I haven't kind of mentioned in there, but that's kind of the main stream that we'll be exploring today. If you do have any questions, please feel free to either type it in the chat, or you can raise your hand, or if it's something that is really urgent, or that you feel is just so connected in with what we're discussing right then, you can unmute yourself as well and just pop in. I don't mind that at all. I'll do my best to answer everybody's questions as they come up, and if we miss some, I'll be back again next week, and I'll take note of anything that I've either don't have the answer right now, or that we might not have time to cover, and I'll try and bring that into the next presentation. So first off, I'd like to get to know you a little bit. Can you type in the chat, first of all, where you are, and what organization you're connected with, and the last social media platform that you used? That'll just give me a little bit of an idea of who I'm speaking with today. Great, thank you. Richmond, BC. So although I'm here in Hudson, Quebec, I was raised in Vancouver. I went to school in the Tri-Cities area, in Port Moody and Port Coquitlam and Coquitlam. And I lived downtown in Vancouver for a few years, and also in New Westminster, which was a place that was very near and dear to my heart. And I see Erin smiling, and hi, nice to see you. Yes, so most recently Facebook for you, Erin. That's great. And if you have a question that is really top of mind that you're really, really, really hoping that I'll answer in this presentation, or a topic you're hoping I'll cover, I'd also appreciate that if you could type that into the chat for me today. So I see we've got from Hornby Island, Port Alberni, Salt Spring Island. It's great. It's all over BC. It's all of these, mentally touring through all the places I went camping and on vacation way back when I lived there. That's fantastic. And Chilliwack Cultural Center. This is super great. And a lot of Facebook, YouTube. Okay, that's awesome. So can you type a 1 in the chat if you feel like you're very, very social media savvy? You feel super confident on the platforms, you're everywhere, you feel really up to date with everything that's going on there. That's great. And can you type a 3 in the chat if you feel like you really don't know very much about social media, you don't feel very confident? Oh, good. We've got a lot of ones. Okay, and we've got some threes. And then you can type a 2 if you're somewhere in between. You feel like, you know some things, maybe you know some platforms, but there's other things that you just feel you're a bit out of your depth. Okay, so we got a lot of 2s in there. So we got a little bit of everything. So for those of you who are 1s, I'd really appreciate it if you guys can contribute to the conversation. If you've got a specific example, something that you've done firsthand that has worked really well, that you think that your colleagues might benefit from hearing about, please raise your hand, or like I said, just feel free to unmute yourself and jump in and share your story. Um, and feel free to add information in the chat if you feel like there's something else that maybe I'm missing, or some detail that you can contribute to the conversation. And for those of you that are the 2s and the 1s, I'll do my best to kind of give you an overview. So the short kind of takeaway that I'm hoping that you'll get from this is, when it comes to social media, the value that you can expect to get from it is directly proportionate to the amount you invest in it. And I don't just mean time. I mean, in terms of your emotional commitment to your audience and to your connection with your audience on social media. That means that you are listening to them, you are there with them, you're using social media as an opportunity to understand them. And the more that you do that, the easier social media will become for you, because you'll have that intuitive understanding of what they want to hear from you, what they like to see from you, how you can communicate your message in the way that most resonates with them. And we'll go through some of the ways to do that. So one of the things that people often wonder about with social media is, they wonder, what is the value really going to be? What is the ROI? As any of you know who have spent any time at all managing social media for an organization, although the tool itself may be free, it doesn't come without a cost. You need to spend a lot of time to be able to get anything really out of social media. And of course, there can be also a financial cost in terms of whether that's getting the design assets created or videos created to be sharing on social media, investing in those creative elements, or if it's investing in advertising so that you can make sure that your posts are seen. As I'm sure that you've already discovered, the vast majority of the followers that you might have on Facebook or on any of the platforms, they show up there in your follower count, but they're not seeing all the posts that come through. And so that factors in as well. Okay, and we have actually a question on that in the chat from Magda. So from Chamber Music Kelowna, it's challenging to find content, and is it worth it to pay to boost the posts? So you'll find that many of my answers to questions will begin with "it depends." It depends. It depends what the quality of that content is, and if that content itself is moving the needle for your business, and connecting with your followers. If you pay to boost your posts, yes, you will get it in front of more people, and so in that sense, it's worth it. But you also have to think, well, what is the intent with getting more visibility on this post? Is there something actionable from it? Is it going to result in something happening? You know, unless you have a plan in your mind about how, you know, that piece of content is going to connect with somebody at a particular phase in their journey with your organization, then, you know, you might spend the money, get the visibility, but not actually see that translate into ticket sales. So you have to have a really clear picture in your mind. Who am I reaching, and what do I expect them or need them to do as a result of having seen this post? Magda, I don't know if you want to unmute or not, but does that kind of give you a quick answer to the question? We are going to go a little bit more into the strategy behind social media in the presentation as well.
No, that was a great answer, Mariana. That's what I was looking for too. Thank you.
Okay, great. You know, and the Facebook ad engine is really, really powerful. If you spend a little time with it, you can get very specific about who you're targeting, and you know, not just in terms of the age demographics and things, but even, you know, their interests and location, you know, right down to very small areas. And that means that you don't actually need to spend a lot of money in order to see results, but you do have to have a very clear idea of who you're targeting, and what your purpose is in trying to reach them. So that kind of brings me neatly into the next thing I wanted to talk about, which is about the idea of creating content strategically. You know, like Magda mentioned, it can be really challenging to figure out, well, what do I say? And how do I find the time to create content? And, you know, and it is easy to waste time as well. You could spend all day, every day on Facebook and Instagram and other social platforms and making pretty pictures in Canva and all of that. But unless it's connected into some kind of a bigger picture, a bigger roadmap, then it's hard to tell if that time spent is worthwhile. So you want it to be strategic, and by that I don't mean necessarily a social media strategy. I mean that your social media should support your strategy. So you may already have you know, a marketing strategy, or you know, an outreach strategy of some kind, and it's best to look at your social media in terms of how can that support that overarching picture. You know, which platforms are the best to be able to reach the audience I know that I want, you know, and then what can I say to engage them in certain specific ways. You also need your social media content to be authentic. And we'll get into this a little bit more further into the presentation, but part of that is having a really clear understanding of what you do well and which social platforms that you actually enjoy and understand, and also what you know you don't do well and the platforms that maybe you don't enjoy or don't understand. You know, it is about your audience and where they are, but it's also about, you know, you and your team producing that content. I'll kind of use an example. You know, I'm more of a writer person. I'm not the most visual communicator. I'm trying to teach myself to become more visual, because social media has become more of a visual kind of platform. You'll see, you know, and you've probably noticed this if you look at your analytics in social, you know, photo and video posts do much better than text only posts across all of the platforms. So what that means is, you know, I know my strength is as a writer, but what I have to do is I have to learn how to be more concise and how to use words together with images, and how I can use words in images, learn those design skills so that, you know, it works for people in the way that they want to receive this information. If you know that you are the kind of person that likes to take pictures and you know you're good at it, then that's a really great kind of cue to tell you what direction to take your content production. You know, double down on that and make your feed, you know, very photo driven, if you know that that's a strength and a skill set. Or likewise, if you have the kind of the bent where you just like to take video and you're interested in learning how to edit together short videos. You know, video is incredibly powerful on all of the platforms now. And if that's something that's a strength for you, you don't actually have to have the pro level of quality these days in order to be successful with video. I think it's more about that appetite to try things, and to invest a little bit of time to, you know, gradually improve your skills. Being consistent, and we'll talk about some ways to do that as well. And I mean consistent in terms of look and feel, in terms of voice and brand, but also in terms of your schedule. As much as possible, you don't want to get into a habit of posting a burst of content all at once and then going dead for weeks or months at a time. Even if you do have a seasonality, if you can plan in advance, you know, what you would like your kind of routine to be, because your audience will come to expect it, and all of the networks in their algorithms, they value consistency. That's one of the things that helps to improve the odds that your content will be seen. Being conversational is another definite asset, and that doesn't necessarily mean casual. What it means is that you are listening as well as speaking. So you know, you're giving people opportunities to comment on things, to offer their opinions, to feedback. You reward people who comment. You create a culture that encourages that give and take, that conversation. And there's a number of specific ways to do that I'll talk about a little later into the presentation as well. And finally, being creative. And I think this is where, you know, people in the arts have a great advantage. I mean, we're here because that's what we love. We love to be creative. We love to be playful. And I think in social media, one of the things that you get to do is you get to do that. You know, because there is this need to feed the beast all the time as well. You have to be constantly producing. And so in a way, it's, you know, one of the best things you can do is to give yourself permission to push the envelope a little bit. You know, you'll have kind of a boundaries that are defined by the type of organization and the type of brand that you have. But as we all know, whenever it's time to sit down to create, sometimes having constraints is the best thing to be able to free that creativity. And so really challenging yourself to try new things as much as you can is a great way to win at social and to produce really great content. So going back to the strategy part of it, you want to come back to your overall goals as an organization, as well as in your marketing strategy. You want to think about, you know, what are you trying to accomplish? How will you know you're successful? What are some ways that you can measure the effects of your activity on social media? And Inga's going to come back to the point on measurement in, I guess, 2 weeks from now, when she does the final workshop in this series. She's going to do a deeper dive on the analytics side. But suffice that to say that, you know, if you can identify certain things that you feel are important to you, or that you know will kind of move your audience closer to where you want them to be, you want to identify just a few things and pay really close attention to those numbers. And then that gives you the feedback to know if you're doing well or not. So you want to think about your audience. So, you know, you probably have a good idea about your audience's demographics. And from that, you can get, you know, you can make some pretty good guesses about where they might be, but you also can ask them. You have an opportunity, if you have an email database, or if you're doing any kind of surveys at all, to find out which networks people use and what they're looking for, you know, in those networks. There's also a bit of trial and error in keeping track of what you see works, right? Watching what kind of posts do they engage with? How does your audience see you? What kind of relationship do they want to have with you? How do they want to interact with you? And depending on your culture, your brand, your style, that can be quite different from one organization to another. Okay, and Colleen, you've got a bit of a story here. So your target audience is local in Port Alberni, and you boosted a post and got responses from people across Canada, including creepy people. And you're right, obviously those people are not going to buy subscriptions. Do you want to unmute and tell me a little bit more about what happened there?
Well, I got an email. I actually got an email contact from someone whose name sounded vaguely like someone I should know, but it was so far back, I'd forgotten this guy, totally forgot him. I asked him if he wanted to buy a subscription, and he said, no, didn't I remember we dated in Edmonton, blah, blah, blah. And I went, oh my God, not him. It was creepy. It was creepy. You want to,
Wow.
yeah, ew.
So when you boosted the post, did you use like did you set the filters for the audience that you were trying to reach specifically to Port Alberni, or do you remember?
Probably not, because I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah.
You get that message that says, do you want to improve your exposure, and do you want to boost this post? And it was going to be $20. And I thought, $20? That's so cheap, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's boost the post, right? And then, ew, right? But I don't
Yeah.
think I knew there were filters. I don't think I know about filters.
Okay. So you know,
Okay.
we won't get into a deep dive into Facebook advertising in this presentation, but I can say just quickly that you have the option to boost posts, but you can also create ads that are not connected to specific posts and can be promoting anything you want. And when you go through the ad creation process, you have the option to narrow down the audience that the ad is supposed to reach. So you can get you know, down to, you know, people in Port Alberni between the ages of, you know, 25 and 45 who are parents. Or who are not parents. You know, depending on how big your market is, sometimes, you know, if you get too specific, you end up shrinking to a pool that's too tiny and you can't get in touch with them. But at the very least, you can go right down to that level of like within, you know, a certain radius of Port Alberni, so that you can get a, you know, a more reasonable selection of people who actually might come and, you know, buy tickets or buy a subscription to the show.
It wasn't a great experience. I haven't done it again.
Yeah.
It was just creepy.
Yeah. You know, I think so in terms of the whether to boost posts or whether to create an ad, I think you know, one of the things that kind of factors into that is how much money you have to spend on advertising, and also whether your goal at that point is to increase exposure for your page, or if you have something concrete that you're selling. You know, boosting posts, you know, you get it in front of more people, you know, but if you have something that's more of a campaign approach, you know, where you're trying to sell tickets to a specific show or to a subscription, you probably are better off going through the Facebook Ads Manager and creating the ad in that space instead. And actually, you know, this also does tie into budget resources. I think whenever you are thinking about how you're going to be on social media, you know, it's important to be really realistic about that. As I alluded to before, you know, it's not free because it takes time. And there are many things you can do to try to reduce the amount of time it takes from your day, including things like batch creating content. You know, you can plan one day a week where you sit down and, you know, if you have a podcast, let's say the cycle could be you record a podcast with somebody, you take the transcript of that podcast and clean it up and turn that into a blog post. Then you use your video editing software and you take the video from that and you slice up into teaser videos, which you can share, you know, on Instagram or wherever else on social media. You upload the video from that interview onto YouTube or Vimeo. You know, you come up with as many ways as possible to remix that same content, you know, and you can do things like take quotes or insights from that conversation and put them into a visual graphic you can share on Instagram using a tool like Canva. And you know, or, you know, another way to do it is to gather up a whole bunch of photos over the course of a week and then plan, like, one day you're going to sit down and you're going to crop them and apply the filters and schedule them using a, you know, a tool like Hootsuite or Agorapulse or something like this, so that it drips out over the following weeks. So you can do those things, but I think, you know, when I was talking about constraints earlier, it's not such a bad thing to give yourself constraints either. Decide, you know, what you're going to win at, what you're going to do really well, and maybe what you're not going to do right now because you just know you do not have the resources to sustain it. Yeah, and then the same from an advertising perspective, you know, your choices in terms of how you're going to promote your content and how you're going to promote your page. It's going to be definitely, you know, informed and limited by the amount of budget that you have for those things. Um, I will switch over to the PowerPoint, but not yet. Right now, I'm just using it as a bit of a talking points guide, you know, because I feel like seeing a bunch of slides is just very boring. So, um, so part of that is to do a bit of that self-assessment. You know, thinking about which social media networks do you like to use? You know, what are you able to do yourself, and what maybe do you need to lean on other people to do? Like maybe you can create some invitations for some of your fans to contribute photos or to help you to produce other kinds of content. You know, do you have a sense of what your voice even should be? You know, who are you on social media? Who are you to your customers? And that can also guide you to know, you know, where does it make sense to win? You know, and where does it make sense to back off right now? And I see Cheryl's got a point there about Canva. Canva is awesome. If you haven't tried it already, it is a really powerful tool to be able to quickly and simply create graphics. And as she mentions in here, there's a free version, which actually does quite a lot by itself. And then there's a pro version, which is still quite affordable, and there is a nonprofit discount as well. So definitely worth looking into. And we'll come back to Canva in a little bit as well. Um, I think when it comes back to the idea of consistency, um, you know, it helps to use a tool actually like Canva on that front too. When you're creating images, one of the things that it lets you do is it creates like a mini style guide. They call it a brand kit, and that can help you stay on track to make sure that everything that comes through is using consistent colors and fonts and styles. It makes it very easy to have a couple of different templates that you just update as you're going through. And especially if you've got several people or if you've got volunteers who are helping you out with creating some of your social media content, you know, using tools like that to provide a little bit of those guidelines is really, really helpful. It also helps to have a content calendar, and you can get really, really detailed with, you know, all of the spreadsheet fun in this, or you can have more of an outline, whatever works for you and, you know, the complexity that you need to deal with. But at a minimum, if you think ahead to, you know, what the coming season and as far out as you're able to forecast, you know, what are some of the big things coming up that you want to lead up to, and, you know, thinking about what can I do to promote them on these platforms? When would it make sense to be talking about these things? Let's say if you are putting together, you know, a theater production, you know, you can be gathering content for social media at the beginning when you're casting. You know, you can be taking photos to have there. You can choose to share it then, or you can choose to keep it in the bank for something you can use later. You know, you in fact should not wait till the very end, right when you're about to be promoting the show itself, to start talking about it on social media. So having a little bit of a roadmap in mind about what you're going to talk about and when. Some people like to use things too where they might define certain days of the week where they're going to talk about certain things, like there'll be a Feedback Friday where they might ask a question to their audience, you know, or maybe every Monday they're going to post a behind the scenes photo to show, you know, what life is like behind the curtain for everybody who's working, you know, on the show or in the venue, things like this. And that can be very helpful as well. So one exercise that can be useful, and I'm just going to bring this up here, and I'd like you to take a minute and share with this in the chat if you're willing. You can just write it down as well. It's going to make that big. So a very simple fill in the blanks, you know, to kind of clarify who you are on social. We are blank and blank, but never blank or blank. So you could say things like, you know, we are funny and friendly, but never formal or boring, just off the top of my head. And so think about the kinds of adjectives that you would describe yourself. And I'd appreciate it if you guys could take just a minute, maybe write it down, maybe share it in the chat if you're willing, just so we can get a sense of the spectrum of, the many ways that we can be on social. And while you're doing that, I see there's a comment there about self-assessment and the voice. So this is a piece of it, thinking about who you are and who you are not. But it's also about being very realistic about your skills and your strengths, your identity as an organization, and especially the kind of relationship you want to have with your audience. So if you think about, like, what are the feelings I want to inspire in my audience? Is my mission to inform them? Is it to educate them? Is it to entertain them? Do I want to have a sense of discovery, right? So thinking a little bit about like, what emotions do you want to evoke in your audience? From there, you can take a step back and say, well, what are some of the tools I can use to do that? Does that help a little bit, Elena?
It's
I'm sorry.
Eileen. And yes, it
Eileen,
does.
sorry.
No worries, everyone. You're not alone. It's all good. Thank you.
Is there anything else that you needed clarity on related to your question? Okay, perfect. Thank you. Okay, so we are formal and informative, but never funny or silly, because you've got a super serious board. Okay, so there's a very good point. So in that case, you might go backwards and say, well, then what kind of content do I create on social? I create, informational content. It's important to me to communicate certain key messages. And then from there, you think, well, what are the key messages I need to communicate? What is it that my audience needs to know that only I can help them understand? And what's the best way to go about that? Maybe that means that you create more infographic type visuals, or you share a tip of the day, or a did you know. Maybe you have an interview with a subject matter expert where they can do a deep dive into the thinking behind whatever art you're sharing, things like that. So we are theatrical and literate, but never old or boring. So you can see there's something in the polar opposite there. So if you're theatrical, you're going to be larger than life. That should come through in your colors. It should come through in the choice of camera angles in your photography. That youthfulness, that freshness, that vibe. So, for whatever your fill in the blanks turns out to be, that simple exercise can help you get like a vision of that end point. Where do I want to be? And then from there, you can work back. Well, what can I do to be like that, and to help people see me that way? That's great. And welcoming and clever, family oriented and fun, but never boring or exclusive. This is great. And thank you for sharing, everybody. So it is a conversation, and in any conversation, you need to earn your audience's attention. And one of the great ways to do that is to ask people about themselves. You'll notice that if you're ever at a mixer, and somebody walks up to you and they introduce themselves, and then they just start talking your ear off about how great they are and all of the things they're up to, and you should really come and try my blah blah blah. You switch off pretty fast and start looking for a rescue. Whereas if somebody comes up and they start asking you questions about you, and they seem genuinely interested to hear about who you are, and what are you interested in, and what brought you here tonight, and do you know the host, all of those kinds of questions, that starts to open up a conversation. And from there, all kinds of interesting kind of opportunities for connection emerge. So that concept about creating a dialogue, it comes back to an idea that's really important in early childhood education, but I think is really important in social media too. I think it's an important concept for any kind of relationship building. And this idea is serve and return. And what that means is, when you serve, you put an idea on the table, you do something. And when the person mirrors it back to you or they respond, then they've returned. And what you're trying to get is like a tennis match going, where I offer this, you respond and send information back to me or commentary back to me. And then I take that and I do something different and I respond to your response. And when you can start to get that volley happening on social media, that's when you'll see people start to really dig in and engage with your content. And again, that shows them that they're valued and that it's worth their time to engage with you. And then they start to think of you as more than just a provider of, you know, whatever they've come to buy a ticket for. You know, they start to develop that emotional connection with you as an organization. So again, back to you guys. I'd like you to take a minute and think about the recent social media posts, you know, that your organization has put out. You know, can you think of any that had a particularly good response from your followers? I'd really like to hear some examples about, you know, what has worked for you and what you've observed gets a response. You can type it in the chat or you can raise your hand. I see a few people typing. You know, when you're thinking about that, you can think, you know, what format was that in? You know, was it text only? Was it video? Was it a photograph? Was it a question? You know, did I use emojis? Did I tag somebody? You know, you can also think about which platform was it on? Was it on Instagram or Facebook or Twitter or TikTok? Okay, and so we've got some good answers coming in here. So Capitol Theater, I'm sorry, I don't have your name on here. Your best performing post was a photo of the new water fountain. Could you unmute and tell us a little more about that?
Sorry, just
That's okay.
moving out of where I was. Yeah, we got a new water fountain installed in our lobby with like a water bottle filler. And that is our, to this day, that was over a year ago, that's our best performing social media post we've ever done.
Do you have any theories why?
Nope, honestly, I can't imagine. It's not even like a particularly incredible photo. It just happened to be, people were really excited about our water fountain. I don't know.
I guess maybe you had a lot of people who were thirstier than you knew during your performance.
I guess so. Or more concerned about plastic water bottle use, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, and sometimes it's just that something is unexpected too. You know, just breaking through what they, you know, they didn't expect to see a photo of the water fountain. They're like, yeah, good on you.
Yeah, just different from what we normally share.
That's good. Okay, interesting. Okay, and when you tag participants, they engage back. Yep. You know, that's something definitely to be done sparingly because you want that to be friendly, not creepy. But when you can do it in an authentic way to be able to tag people, that definitely brings that personal touch. You know, so they feel that you're speaking to them particularly. New logo graphics. Yeah, and of course, canceling the season, you know, the big news like that for sure, that's going to get a response. Yes, and the photos and video typically, you know, and actually that could be another reason for the water fountain one, depending on what the mix is of the content you usually share. If you tend to share more links or just text only posts, and then you suddenly post a photo, it's not unusual that the photo will end up doing much better than the other varieties of posts, and that's just because of the format. Ah, yes, and Bernie and his mitts waiting in front of the theater and the audience waiting for you to open. Yeah, so Aaron, would you mind unmuting a little bit to share that one and explain what Bernie and his mitts is for anybody who missed that meme?
So we, the picture of Bernie Sanders at the inauguration, all huddled up with his mittens on in front of the chair. My delightful marketing assistant put him in our theater all alone with 1,260 seats around him, and then in front of our theater all alone waiting for it to open with our "We're miss you, we're sad, but look, Bernie has lots of space." And it did very well.
Yeah. Yeah, so jumping on that trend, because he was everywhere for that period. And that is definitely something as well that you can use as a bit of a tack. I mean, it's not always going to be as, you know, easy as the Bernie meme where you can just pick them up and drop them in. But, you know, where there's an opportunity to, you know, work with an idea that's already circulating or with something that's newsworthy, and to be able to jump on that, that definitely can help. All right. So I wanted to talk a little bit about, and actually I'm going to take this off of the screen sharing because it's a bit of a beastly slide. It's there for your reference, but you know, when you're coming to social media, you want to respect your audience's purpose first. So if you think about what are they doing on these social networks, like if they're on Facebook, they're probably there to connect with friends and family, or maybe with communities of interest. You know, like there's a lot of neighborhood groups that are very active, or you know, I'm a member of a group that's all about, it's a fan group that got started by a fantasy author in Ottawa called Charles de Lint. But the group is not about him. It's all about the mythic in this world, and mythology and stories and things in that ilk. It's such a fun group to be a part of because you see so many cool things come your way. So people are on Facebook for things like this. You know, there's a community that they're connected to, that they know usually in real life, or that they have something in common with, and they've liked your page, or they see a post come through because a friend of theirs has liked their page. And you have to understand that you're coming to them within that context. On YouTube, people are probably looking for videos, either kind of scrolling through just for something entertaining, or they might be actively searching for something that maybe they want to learn how to do, or you know, a video about a particular thing that they like to watch about, or to fix a problem. And you know, and you might show up in the mix there. On Twitter, they're there probably more to talk about a topic, probably with people they don't know, possibly to fight about it too. Happens a lot on Twitter. And you know, and so they're going to be more oriented to, you know, clicking and sharing links, and sharing opinions, and wanting to see opinions as well. Instagram is completely different. It's all about the pretty pictures, but it's not just pretty pictures. It's also about, you know, seeing that highlights reel of people's lives, and of places that you'd like to go, and beautiful spaces that you wish were your space. There's that aspirational kind of vibe to Instagram. And at the same time, there's also the opposite, that the no filter view of it, where you know, there's that sense of valorizing the ordinary and the everyday, and the no makeup and, you know, no pretense side of things as well. And then there's TikTok. You know, then can you type a 1 in the chat if you are on TikTok and you know about it already, and let's say a 3 if you've never been there, or you know next to nothing about it. And you can put a 2 if you really want to type something, and then you're in between. Okay, so we got a lot of 3s. We've got some 1s. Okay, for those of you who are 1s, would you mind, let me see, I'm going to pick on somebody. Aaron, I picked on you before. Okay, so let's go with the Capitol Theater, and I'm sorry, I still don't have your name. You're using it personally, but not for the theater. Can you just share a little bit about, you know, what you've observed so far on TikTok?
Yeah, I think it's actually like a really powerful tool for promotion, especially in theater, because it's so video directed that it's an easy way to promote shows, whereas some of the other platforms are less set up for like the video. Like with Instagram and stuff, there's such weird constraints on times and like whether it's a timeline video or a reel or a IGTV video, I think that it just makes more sense. And also because you have only a minute, you have to really put what's important into the video. And I do also work in marketing at another business, and we've used it. We sell art supplies, and we've used it there, and it really has worked to increase sales on certain products because you can showcase it in such a different way.
Totally. Yeah, so I see the question from Steve, isn't TikTok strictly teen oriented? The answer is that TikTok is a very young platform, and although it started out being something that primarily was being used by younger people, it has really started to move in some interesting directions. More and more, you know, other kind of generational cohorts are starting to use it, but not only use it, contribute content. And it's a really interesting thing, like the whole genre of it, the style of the tool, like in the same way that Instagram changed how we take photos and how we think of using our photos and the stories we tell with photos, TikTok is doing the same for video. The growth in TikTok has been so fast that you know, when you're looking at, you know, who's using it, you're always looking in the rearview mirror, and you can see it's rapidly moving more towards that like a more mainstream one. It does still skew younger than Facebook and Instagram, but there's definitely users of all ages now, and in most places in the world as well. Yeah, and I see some others talking about it's taking off for business. Not for everybody, but it definitely has that role. And you can see, you know, just because of its reach, if your business is really only local and, you know, tourists really are not a big part of your business, and you don't have anything to sell online or overseas, maybe it's not as relevant from a marketing perspective for you. But one thing you can do on TikTok is it's a great experimental medium. It's a perfect place to play. That's what people are there for. They want to see you having fun and trying out things. And the interface actually gives you lots of ways to play with video that you don't get in other platforms and other video editing tools. So, you know, that's, I think, what we're seeing. And again, in the arts, many organizations and many artists are in a really great position to use TikTok because it's such a creative and playful medium. So if these are some of the reasons why the users are there, we have to be aware of it so that we understand the context, like what's going through their mind, and, you know, and what they're hoping to see when they're in these places. But we can't lose sight of why we're there too, right? And each of these platforms has its own specific set of tools and benefits. And so thinking, I guess clarifying, what is it that you're trying to do in each social media platform that you're engaging in is really important, because that can help you to, again, focus your resources on the things that you know are going to move the needle for you and that you know you're capable of doing well and consistently. So on Facebook, the algorithm really rewards engagement with people, and information spreads through networks of people who are connected and know each other, often in real life. So knowing that, you know, one of the main kind of reasons to be on Facebook is to inspire your fans to want to share the news about you with their friends, to feel like it's brag worthy to be connected with your brand. So giving them opportunities, you know, to show that they're the kind of person that likes theater, or the kind of person, you know, that will go to that art opening, helping them to look good in front of their friends, is one of the ways that, you know, you kind of fit more naturally into that medium. So like it or not, it is this, like, you know, this big mixed bag where people are connected with, you know, their relatives, their friends, their employers, you know, all kinds of different folks. And we're all very aware that everything we do on that platform presents an image of us to these people we're connected with, and that we'll have to see again on Monday, or, you know, whenever it is that we're going to see them again. So you want to encourage people to like, comment, and share. That's going to get you the best mileage in the algorithm, and it's also natural behavior on Facebook. We mentioned before about video being really important, and also about the ads platform being something that is particularly powerful on Facebook. If we contrast that with Instagram, for example, we talked about how people are looking for a bit of like inspiration, more of a highlights reel. That's a little bit different than the virtue signaling that happens on Facebook, where, you know, Facebook is us telling other people about who we are by, you know, how we engage and what kind of things we share, and, you know, what dialogue we engage in, right? Instagram, the algorithm works differently. That's not how we see each other on Instagram. It's much more about the feed, and about hashtags as well. So on Instagram, you know, you want to inspire people. You want to give them a bit of a glimpse into your world. You want to give them something that, you know, helps them see things in a new way or see you in a different way. And of course, you want it to look pretty too, because that is also a big reason why people like Instagram. On Twitter, it's different again. You know, Twitter is more about topics of conversation. There's more room for debate there. If your content is more informational rather than inspirational, if it is about a particular place or topic that there's already a lot of dialogue about on Twitter, those can be some really good reasons to select that. Or if one of your purposes is for social media to drive traffic to your website. Facebook also is better for links. Instagram is not going to help you get traffic to your website. If that's one of your goals, then that is not the platform for you. And then TikTok, as I mentioned, you know, it's a great place to express who you are and to connect with your audiences through play. You can invite them to play with you. One of the features that's unique to that platform is you can have the opportunity to duet with another video. So their video editor will make it possible to take a video that exists on the platform, and then like you can add yourself into that video and kind of adjust the story a little bit by doing that. That is an option you can turn on or off. So it doesn't mean that all your videos can be remixed if you put it on the platform. But you can see that, especially if your brand, if your identity is, you know, playful, if you like that kind of like, let's improvise kind of vibe, you know, if you can connect with an audience on TikTok, you can start to create those kinds of experiences there. Any questions so far on that part? And I'll just put up the summary just because I know I went through that really fast. So again, you're looking at your audience's purpose and your purpose, and trying to identify as best as you can tell for your audience and for your brand. What do they want? What do you want? And where does that overlap? And that point of overlap is the territory you want your content to occupy. Because if it's too much about you, you're that annoying person at the cocktail party. You don't want to be that person. Okay, so can I explain hashtags? Yes, I can. And if you think about them as a way to group conversations by topic, that's probably the easiest way to understand them. So they are present on Facebook, but not commonly used there. Where you see them being much more important is on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. On all of those platforms, you can search in the search bar by hashtag, and you'll get up a list of posts that people have created that have used that hashtag. And where that becomes useful is that you can write something in plain language without necessarily having to like use all the same keywords, and you put that hashtag, and then suddenly you're connected into a conversation. So if I can use, sometimes they're by topic and sometimes they're by place. So in New Westminster, for example, when I was there, I was among a group of early adopters that tried to popularize the use of the, you know, hashtag New West. And so whenever I was posting things about New West, I would add the hashtag, and I'd try to start conversations about things happening in New West. And if there were events that I was at, you know, and I was live tweeting at the event, I'd be using the hashtag. And, you know, and I wasn't the only one. There were a few people around the same time who were actively using it. But it became quite a big thing. And Erin, you'll have to tell me, I don't know if it's still a big thing in US. I've been away for almost 5 years now.
It's a big thing in New West. There was
Yeah.
also an entire New West goes viral thing that was happening on Twitter. We had that for a while. Together New West is best, rediscover New West. We like a rhyme.
Yeah, and you know what, it was funny because I remember, I used to run a hyperlocal blog in New West, and which is why I was trying to popularize this New West hashtag. And and it was a really good example of, at the time when I started on Twitter, I was searching and searching and searching. I wasn't even sure there was anybody in New West who was on Twitter, because almost nobody put it as their location in their bio, and there were almost like no conversations at all happening about New Westminster. But I started to like sleuth and look around for people, who's mentioning New West places in passing, any opportunity I could get to try to like identify local people. And I try to, respond to them and engage with them. And it ended up creating a culture where people started to really be active about promoting their place and their pride of place online, and it ended up becoming like a really huge thing. And I'm so happy to hear it's still going today. That's awesome. But but one thing that illustrates too is that yes, it's much easier to know where your audience is and then go be where they are. But if you're willing to put in the work and create an experience that people want to have, you can also kind of move people in a particular direction. It's not that there was nobody on Twitter who was from New Westminster or talking about New Westminster. It's just they didn't think anybody else was interested in having that conversation. And so by kind of planting the flag and creating opportunities to have connections that people found meaningful, then more and more people started to do that. And then it was not like I didn't have to feed that anymore. It just started to take off on its own. Is that a fair assessment, Erin?
It is, and I will say that in New Westminster, Twitter is a uniquely powerful platform, and we all know that. So it is more engaged. It's not huge. Our reach isn't perhaps as far, but it is much more engaged. So we can really get activation and conversation happening just by using that hashtag.
Yeah. Yeah, and in contrast, when I moved out here to Hudson, there are a few people in Hudson on Twitter, but it's really not the space where people are talking about local issues. It's on Facebook in community groups, and on Instagram here, where there's a lot happening. Could I try and recreate the Twitter thing? I could try, but here my goals are a little different, and I'm happy to just kind of be where the people are. So does that answer your question about the hashtags and topics? Okay, great. How do you find out which platforms are used in a particular area? There's a few ways that you can do that. Thank you, Magda. So there's a few ways you can do that. One way is simply search on that keyword. That's an easy way. Type it in there and see if anybody is saying anything interesting. You can also use tools like there's hashtag search tools, and if you do any kind of a Google search on it, it's going to come up with various ones. I think hashtags.org is one of them. And you can type in keywords, and it'll give you some lists of potentially relevant hashtags that you could be using. Yeah, and then the other way is to popularize your own hashtags. So depending on how intense your relationship is with your audience and how motivated they are to represent your cause, you can also start using hashtags. And if you get enough people using them, then it takes on a life of its own as well.
Sorry, I may not have asked my question clearly. You said when you moved to Hudson, you
Yeah.
said you're not on Twitter, but they're on Facebook and Instagram. And I was wondering how you knew that. Sorry, I didn't mean about that.
Yeah, but even that, it's just searching and seeing. So, also in New Westminster, the Facebook community groups were really big, and there were some that were especially lovely. There was a one for parents that I was a big part of that had a really nice sense of community. So when I moved here, that was one of the first things I did was to look around and see if there was something similar, and it turned out there was. And so I started joining a number of those groups, and it turns out there's a whole bunch of those groups. You know, and that made it really easy to start to get connected with people. And then on Instagram, you know, like I said, for myself personally, I tend to be more word oriented, not photo oriented. And so initially I wasn't all that interested in even looking on Instagram. You know, I do some work with local businesses here. And so, you know, for that purpose, I started getting on Instagram and, you know, buckling down and learning the platform a little more. And then I quickly discovered, just from observing the response from people, that that Instagram was, there's a very vibrant Instagram scene. And I think part of that is, you know, it's a very arts and culture driven town. There's a lot of people who appreciate beautiful things in this town, and a lot of people that have pretty hobbies too. So they like to share photos of their pretty things. And, you know, so that's one of the reasons why it exists here. And there are local hashtags that are used, and they're growing more and more powerful as more people use them as well, to try to link together the conversations about Hudson on Instagram. So somebody had mentioned about the difficulty in finding content and knowing what to say. So I'm going to switch back again to my presentation here. You don't have to do it all yourself. You can look at it. There's kind of the 3 C's that I've put here. You can be the creator. You know, you can write the blog posts, make the videos, take the pictures, record the podcasts, make the illustrations. And it is important to have at least some of that in the mix, but you don't have to do all of that. You can also curate. So you can find, you know, other like-minded organizations or people who express sentiments that align with your brand and with what you know your audience wants to hear from you. You can point people in the direction of, you know, great things that are happening that you just know that they would like. So what that mix is, it really depends on, you know, who your organization is and who your audience is. But don't underestimate that value in sharing something that you just know that your audience wants to hear about. They really appreciate that. And of course, it means you don't have to create that content yourself too. And then there's also conversation. So that can take a number of forms. You can interview an artist or an expert. You know, you can do a Facebook Live, or you can do a special Zoom event about it. You can stream that into, you know, your Facebook page as well. You can also do a Ask Me Anything style, like, you know, on Friday, you know, I'm going to come on, I'm going to be live, and you guys can post your comments in the chat, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about this show that's upcoming, and I'll tell you about it, and you can ask me anything you're curious about. You can also join in conversations via hashtags as well, and that's more relevant, more in the, I'd say more the Twitter kind of stream. Let's say that there's an ongoing discussion. I don't know if there is or not, but let's say there's an ongoing discussion on Twitter about Indigenous representation in theater, let's say. There might be a hashtag that helps link that conversation together. And if your organization has something to say about that and wants to be a part of that conversation, that becomes a part of your stream and your identity on Twitter as well. What you say becomes a part of the record of who you are, and gives an opportunity as well to introduce your audience to that conversation. So some of the skills you need and some of the tools that can help you to be able to produce this kind of content. Design skills are becoming increasingly important. The good news is Canva makes it easy for non-designers to produce pretty things. So one way you can work with that so that you stay on brand is to work with a designer to create Canva templates that you then edit. And that way it reduces the amount of back and forth and, you know, production time and everything, while still giving you clear boundaries to work with. And that's especially important if you have multiple people creating content, or if you know that you're really not a visual creator, but you do know the message that you want to communicate. Writing is still important, even though, you know, it is, you know, more increasingly photos and video that are showing up everywhere on social media. What you'll find is that many of the videos have captions, and the captions tell the story. The majority of people who watch the videos on social media actually watch it with the sound off. So if you're producing a video, it's worth it to think about captioning the video. And of course, the captions, although they could be the literal caption of what somebody is saying, it can also be, you know, a different way of telling the story. So it's something to know about. And then, of course, when you're producing graphics that have text on them, your selection of words is incredibly important. And as any writer knows, writing shorter is actually harder than writing longer. So you still need to develop that voice as a writer. Some tools that can help that, and they're linked in the presentation that'll be sent to you. The Hemingway app will flag to you when your sentences are becoming long and complex and wordy, and will offer suggestions on ways that you can simplify it to make it more readable, and offer suggestions on word choice as well. Rhymezone.com is a bit of a funny one, but you can put in any word and you'll get back rhymes and quotation snippets and clusters of related word terms. And that can be helpful if you're trying to brainstorm ideas for stuff to say. You know, it just kind of helps to shake the tree a little bit. Same thing for your blog topic idea generator and things like Ubersuggest and SEMrush topics. So Ubersuggest and SEMrush give you suggestions based on search keywords that are connected to a particular topic. I'd say that's mostly relevant for blog posts, but again, it can be relevant for creating other kinds of content as well, just to help you think a little outside the box, right? When it comes to video production, you know, there's lots of helpful tools now to make that easier. You know, Canva, you can use videos in Canva. You can do things like, because it's great. One thing that's nice these days is that your video doesn't have to be long. It doesn't even have to have narrative. It just has to show something. So even things like, you know, opening your doors or raising the curtain, you know, 15 seconds of that is enough to make that a video post to share on social media. You pair that with a good caption and, you know, you can go on Canva, float the caption in your logo, add some music behind it, and there you go, you've got a video post. And you'll see that those kinds of posts, just with that very simple animation, will go further in your social media than if you had just written a text caption or if you had put out a photo. TikTok's video editor, like I said, makes it really easy to create interesting videos. So if your brand is playful and experimental, it might be worth playing with TikTok just to see what you can come up with. And the videos you create there can definitely be shared on the other platforms as well. Nobody minds if they've got the TikTok watermark on them. And in fact, TikTok could be a great place to test and see which videos people like the best, and then take the best of those and put them where you know they're going to be seen by your actual audience. Biteable I included here. That is a paid tool, but it's not very expensive. It makes it very easy to create things like short infographic type videos or kind of slideshow type videos. So that's another case where maybe you don't have a lot of video content, but you might have photos. And so you can make a slideshow video with captions and tell a story that way. And Biteable makes that very easy. There are many, many more. I just kind of put a few in here. I put in public speaking in here, and I know that's kind of a funny one because, you know, of course, you're talking into a camera, but I put it in here because I think many of the qualities and the techniques that make you an effective public speaker help you to connect with people when you're doing things like Instagram Live or Facebook Live, or if you're doing Zoom events as well. That ability to, I mean, one, get over your fear of being on camera and get over the fear of saying the wrong thing or, you know, making a mistake. That's something you need for as a public speaker, and that translates beautifully to video as well on social media. And I included a link to the Toastmasters tips. There's something like 90 in this list. It's a big, great list. And I liked it because it really does show you, like, as you read through, you can see how many of them actually apply perfectly well to being on video and being that voice of your brand on video on social. There's also tactical things like if you're the kind of person that kind of forgets what you're going to say, or you're worried about being flustered, there are teleprompter apps that can help you if you're going to use the live video tactic as a piece of your social media content mix. And the last one in here is empathy, and there's no special app for that, although there's many tools that you can use to try to understand your audience better. But I wanted to include it here because I actually think this is the most important of them all. You know, you can develop your skills in all kinds of content production, but if you don't have a deep understanding of who it is you're speaking to and what they care about and you know how they want to relate to you, then you're going to find it very difficult to make content that connects with your audience, even if it is beautifully produced. And you'll see over and over again on social, the content that goes viral is often not the stuff that is the most slickly produced. It's something that comes from the heart, or something that is unusual or unexpected or playful, just fun. So that's worth keeping in mind as you're going through and creating content. I think sometimes we tend to overthink things, and you know, we just need to remember to be helpful, be present, be there, be relatable. It makes a big difference for our audience. Any questions on these? I'm just going to flip back. Okay, so some people were mentioning about the deck last week didn't come through. I think that can be fixed as well. I think maybe they both can be mailed out together. So I just wanted to get into a couple of examples here, because I know we're coming close to the end of our time together. So I'm going to go back and just share. So this was an example of live stream theater. We were talking a little bit about some live streaming examples at the beginning. And these are, this is the Culture on Facebook. And what I want you to notice is a couple of things. They're talking about this theater production, but they don't just talk about it once. So I'm going to share 3 screen caps with 3 different ways that they're telling the story of this production. So here you see they've got some images of the production, and they've got, you know, the quote with the critical reviews. So this is the production is already there and it's in market. Before that, they also did a Zoom interview, which they broadcast over into Facebook, and they have a couple of these. So there's not just the 3, but I selected 3 from the time. So they're talking a little bit about the story behind the story. How did the play come to life, and you know, who are the people behind this production? And they also were referencing some music that was featured in the production. You know, before you come see the show, listen to this song. It's an important musical moment. So you can see, like, over time, they're dripping through, like, look at this, look at that, look at this other thing. Each one creates an opportunity to interest maybe a different kind of person. And if somebody has interacted with one of those pieces of content, it's more likely that Facebook is going to show the same piece again to that same person. And so that's also going to make it, you know, easier for that person to remember that the show is coming up, and hopefully induce them to actually show up and buy the ticket. So on Instagram, I mentioned, you know, it's image first, and behind the scenes content is really important. Consistency is also important. One great tip that I'd heard on Instagram was to actually write down your content pillars for Instagram. So thinking about, you know, what kinds of things are we going to talk about? And this can include things like, you know, depending on a more, say, as a personal artist level, maybe you as an artist are a huge fan of, I don't know, race cars. So even though your music may not be about race cars, if you as an artist are super excited about race cars, you might decide that that's actually going to be one of the things that's going to show up on my Instagram, is I'm going to share this passion I have as well. From an organizational sense, having some clarity on what your content pillars are going to be, and having that visual continuity about how you share, like, the text graphics, really helps your grid. So when people come to your profile, they're going to look at your grid, and what they want to see is, like, well, what are you about? What can I expect if I follow this profile? So one takeaway you can have from the call is when you go back, if you have an Instagram profile, just go over and take a look at your grid if you haven't recently, and note down, like, is it clear who you are, what your brand is, what you offer? Is it clear what the user will get if they follow you? And I thought that Music BC did a really great job of, of structuring that so that it's really clear what it is that they're doing and being very consistent with the content that they're sharing. We spoke about most of this stuff already on Twitter, and I've got the Anvil Center example because one thing I thought that was really cool with them, you can't really read the tweets. The point is not what's actually in the tweets. This is on their website, and we mentioned Anvil Center's venue in New Westminster, and in New Westminster, Twitter is a huge thing, and for the local community, it's a really important way to share information. And the Anvil Center has shown that they know this by bringing in their tweets onto their homepage as a feed of what's new and what's going on at the Anvil Center. So one thing I did notice that's kind of like the pitfall of this is it hadn't been updated in a little while. We can understand though why. It's a sign of the times, and I think we can expect it'll come back soon enough. I noticed previously when there was more programming happening, the churn of the tweets was much more consistent. And then on TikTok, and we'll talk more about TikTok next week, you want to create short videos, be playful, join trends, explore hashtags, all of that. And one really great example of that was the New York Philharmonic Orchestra. And this is something I think that one of the members of the orchestra came up with. And I'll try and show the video on this next week, but or you can look it up yourself. It's definitely worth Googling. They did a 1-minute Peter and the Wolf, and it is so entertaining and so much fun. They obviously did it during quarantine, but it also illustrates that, the videos you create on TikTok don't just have to live on TikTok. It also got shared over to Facebook. And as you can see here, on TikTok, it got over 11,000 likes and 480 comments as of when I put it into this presentation deck. And on Facebook, it got 414,000 views and 3,500 likes, 465 comments, 8,000 shares. So the video had legs well beyond just TikTok as a platform. But without TikTok and without its particular style of video and its video editing software, I don't think that they would have even thought to produce this video. So it's kind of a good example of how the form itself can help your creativity. So to kind of wrap up, the most important thing is to do what arts people do, be creative. There's lots of great examples out there about what's worked for other people, but you need to do something that is unique to you in order to stand out from the crowd and to really connect with your audience. And this is an idea from Seth Godin. He's always saying, always be shipping. And what that means is just keep putting out work and learning from what you put out, except that not everything that you post is going to be amazing and stellar. Sometimes it's going to be a dud, and that's just that, try and figure out why and try and do better next time. The more stuff that you put out, the more consistent you are with what you put out, the faster you'll figure out what your audience wants from you, and the better you're going to get at social media, and the better you're going to get at producing content. And this is a book that is well worth picking up if these ideas resonate with you. And it just comes back down again that, skills can be developed, and that a good process can lead to a good outcome, but it doesn't guarantee them. You can do everything right, and for some reason, that particular piece of content just doesn't land. Or what you'll see often on TikTok is somebody will produce a video and 4, 5, 6 months later, it goes viral. Why? I don't know. So you have to make a peace with that lack of control over your outcome as well. And that's the thought I wanted to leave with you, is really to not be afraid of being experimental. All right. Any last questions? I know we've got about just under 10 minutes left on this time here. You can just unmute yourself and talk, or you can type in the chat. Anything I didn't cover that you want me to, work into next week? Getting a lot of shaking heads. Okay. We'll be sending an email of all that's been covered. Yeah, the deck that I was working from will be made available to everybody, and there will be a replay made available as well. Yeah, so don't worry if it was a bit too information fire hosey today. You can go back and rewatch sections or take a look through the PowerPoint deck and you know, revisit the parts that you know, maybe I moved through a little too quickly. Brenda, you have your hand up.
Brianna, I just wanted to thank you. Fantastic presentation. I think a lot of us are maybe 2-3 times a week on Zoom, and you are a breath of fresh air. Again, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I have to say it I was intimidated about trying to do these things on Zoom. I'd had so many very, very, very boring Zoom presentations that I had sat through, and I thought I don't want to be another one of those, which is why I think it's just so nice to have the conversation and get your questions. It makes all the difference. And you know, and for me as well, for anybody you know, out there who's a performer, you know, it's the energy from the audience that really matters. And you know, it's there's only so much of that you can get on Zoom, but any little bit helps. And Karen, okay to share the link within the organizations I volunteer with. Joanna, you can clarify on that, but I think that's all right, right? Yeah, I think so. Okay, there we go.
Sorry. I
That's
have
all
to
right.
think about it. I think initially we didn't want to have people sharing out from other organizations, that we really want you to just use it for yourself.
Okay.
So it's kind of a benefit of membership to the Touring Council. And so there is some propriety nature at this point. We'll let you know. We've got to get it up and posted first.
Yeah, there's a lot of information that's very similar on the Digital Arts Nation website, and there will be more workshops as well coming up. So I think one thing you could do is suggest to them to sign up for some of the upcoming events that are coming in the next few weeks and months. Okay, I'm just looking through if there were any other questions that I'm missing here. I think I've got it all. So thank you so much for your time today, for showing up, and for all your great questions and your great energy. I really appreciate it. And if you do think of anything later on that you know, that comes to mind that you hope that we'll cover in the call next week, you know, feel free to let us know. I'll put my email in the chat here. And, you know, and I don't mind at all bringing in some specific questions to make sure that we get through the things that, you know, are actually on your mind.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Brianna. It really was a
Yeah.
fabulous session today.
Oh, thanks.
And we look forward to next week. And thanks to Cheryl for doing all the communications, making sure you are all informed. And this information, the recording from this session needs to get cleaned up a little bit, and we'll get Brianna's slide deck, and it'll be part of the information that we post. So thank you all very, very much. And we'll see you next week. Have a great rest of your day and great rest of your week. Bye now.